I'm French and today I'm gonna tell you 14 things you need to know before coming to Paris. And if you're visiting Paris, you're probably gonna spend a lot of time in restaurants. And it can be a pretty confusing experience unless you know what I'm about to tell you. So in France, there are specific eating times. Usually these are from 12 to 2 p.m. for lunch and starting at 7:30 for dinner. Most people will actually make their dinner reservation at 8 p.m. and their lunch reservation at 1 p.m. So if you arrive outside of these times, you might find the restaurant empty, the kitchen not even open, and people just overall surprised to see you so early. And when you arrive in a restaurant in Paris, I recommend you go see the waiter, say hi to them, and ask them for a table. Then they'll bring water and bread, so this is free, you can fully enjoy it, unlike in other European countries where you have to pay for it. And I'll tell you more about it in a bit, but the service can be a bit different from the US, so if you need something, you have to flag down the waiter and specifically ask them for it. Like for example, when you're done eating, you have to ask for the check. They will not bring it to you unless you ask. And also in France, there is no tipping culture like in the US. The service is already included in the bill, but if you're really happy with your meal and with your waiter, you can leave a €1 coin or a €2 coin on the table when you leave. Also, on the topic of good service, what's considered good service in France and what's considered good service in the US can be very, very different. So in France, people want to have plenty of time to enjoy their meal without being rushed. They also want some privacy, so don't expect the waiter to always be there serving you water and asking you questions like in the US. Actually, that was the one thing that surprised me the most when I was living in the US, was how hands-on the service was. At first, I was really surprised at why the waiter was talking so much to me and always asking me questions and being really overly friendly. But now I've really grown to like it, and I understand why the service in France can be a tiny bit cold sometimes. There's a cultural reason to that, which I'll tell you in the next point, but the other reason is that people don't work for tips, so they don't have to make you like them to get a fair wage. However, if you want to make sure you get good service, just say hello and thank you, and overall treat your waiter like a human being. And before I get on the topic of why French people are not very friendly, at least to you, I want to tell you about a question I always get, which is, what should I do if I don't speak French? So don't let that scare you off. A lot of people speak English, maybe not enough English to have a full conversation, but at least enough English to tell you the price of stuff and maybe give you directions. And a lot of people working in the service industry speak at least a foreign language like English or Spanish or even Italian. And you'll find that if you try to speak French to us, we'll answer in English right away. It's just because we think the conversation can be made more efficient if we speak English. And I personally do that all the time because my boyfriend is American. I've lived in the US, so if I hear someone speaking French to me with an American accent, I'm excited to talk to them in English. So please do not take it personally, and if you want to practice your French with us, just let us know, say you want to speak in French, that you're learning, and we'll be happy to speak French to you. Also, one thing is, if you try to speak French, please do not take yourself too seriously, because French is hard to understand, even for native speakers, if you don't have the exact correct pronunciation. And it's really easy to say a word instead of another. An example is my American boyfriend wanted to say, I have a chair. He mispronounced the word very slightly, and he accidentally said he had troubles in the bathroom. So yeah, that can happen. People will laugh at you. It is objectively funny. I can't do anything for you if you say stuff like that. And there's also a cliche that French people are very rude and snobbish. And having lived in the US for a while, I understand how we could be perceived this way. But actually what's considered nice and polite is a bit different in France than in the US. So for example, small talk is not a thing in France. Not at all. In the US, and I was surprised at first when I lived there, people will randomly ask you questions, maybe in the elevator, in line, and you'll start a random conversation. That's not as much a thing in France because, especially in Paris, people will be a bit suspicious if you're too friendly or asking personal questions. There's a few questions that are just considered small talk in the US, like what do you do for work or where do you live, which you shouldn't ask to a random French person if you've just met them. And I've read somewhere that in France you're friendly with your friends and polite with strangers, and I think I kind of agree. I feel sometimes that one of the reasons why people have such a bad experience in France is because they forget to brush up on the basic rules of politeness in France. And maybe they just skip the politeness and go straight into being friendly, which, as I was telling you, can be a bit scary for French people. Let me make that clear. You absolutely need to say hi or bonjour, which is hello in French, when you are starting an interaction with people, maybe at a shop, asking for directions, any interaction with someone. This is super important because people will get annoyed if you don't say bonjour to them or hi, and they will answer you kind of in a sassy way. They will say bonjour like this, or hello, like as in you're bothering me. If you forget to say hello, people will be rude to you. It's not personal, nothing to see with you. That happens to me as well. If I forget to say bonjour, I get the same exact treatment. And everything I've just told you is particularly true for Parisians, but there's other French cities where people are really friendly. I come from Toulouse and we speak to strangers in the street sometimes. There's many other cities around France where people are known to be friendly. I've heard of Lille and Marseille as well as friendly cities. And if you want to visit those places, you should check out today's sponsor, Klook. Klook is a website where you can book experiences in thousands of destinations around the world, including Paris and other of my favorite destinations like Korea or Japan. And we've been to Japan quite a few times. It's such a fun country to explore since the culture is so unique and things are really different there. However, it's not always easy to understand how stuff works. Like for example, booking tickets for the Shinkansen, which is Japan's bullet train, can be a bit of a struggle. With Klook, you can book those directly online in a few clicks. You just select your date and destination and you can see all the train times and pick the one that works best for you. It makes booking experiences so much easier as you don't need to worry about the language barrier and you can pay directly in your currency. They also have an app that's super flexible and easy to use, where you can find many other cool things to do in your favorite destinations. If you book using the app, use the code BETTERONAPP for 5% discount. So sign up for Klook today using my link in the description. And a sure way to have a good time in France, which can be a bit surprising to my American friends, is to go out and have a drink in public. This is not only totally legal, but also very normal in France, and people do that a lot, especially in summer. So you can see a group of friends having a little picnic, maybe bringing a cheap bottle of wine from the store that costs between 5 and 10 euros, and it's just a very fun way of enjoying being outside with your friends. And while we are on the topic of food and drink, you should know that the portion sizes in France are very small compared to the US. So not only in restaurants where it's common for my American friends to still feel a bit hungry after a meal because things are way smaller, but also in cafes and in stores. But actually everything is really small in Paris compared to the US. So you have small cars, small sidewalks, small shops, small supermarkets, everything is super small. And it's because Paris is very dense and very expensive. So we have a tiny bit less space than in the US. And obviously hotel rooms and apartments you can rent are on the smaller side. And housing tends to be very different from the US, so do not be surprised if you encounter some strange stuff when traveling here. First of all, the apartments are really old. The apartment I live in is in an 1890 building, so it was built a long time ago, and it has a bunch of little quirks and things that are a tiny bit unusual. But even inside the home, there's different things. So we have tiny fridges because we tend to shop more regularly. There's no elevators, and there's also these unique French windows. So don't be scared if that happens to you. You didn't break the window. It's just a way of letting fresh air in. And also there's a thing that tends to break people here is that we don't have AC. I've never had AC in any home I've lived in Europe. And if you're used to it, it can really be awful, especially if you're coming during the summer. Which leads me to my next point of knowing when to come to Paris. So a lot of Parisians take their vacation from the 15th of July to the 15th of August. So if you want to experience the local life, coming in summer is not the best choice because most Parisians are away, there's a lot of tourists, it's very expensive, and also it's really hot. And remember, we don't have AC, so you're gonna sweat a lot. I personally recommend you come during spring, which is my favorite season in Paris. People are in such a good mood. It's lightly sunny, but not too hot. Can do a bunch of picnics and walk around. But the other best season to come in Paris, in my personal opinion, is fall. Fall is really nice as well. And both of these times are good times to experience the local life, which is probably why you're watching this video. Keep in mind that there's two things that can really disrupt your stay. And these are strikes and protests. This is very common in France. There's a lot of strikes, a lot of protests. This is not a cliche, this is the truth. You can have your train cancelled, you can have your flights delayed, shops closed. It's really disruptive, especially to transportation. And that's just how it is. So if you're planning your trip last minute, just check on the strikes, but also check on the protests while you're in Paris. That's my personal opinion because I really hate crowds of people. I do not want to be stuck in a protest. It feels scary to me. So I try to see which protests are in town town and their circuit to just avoid going to that area. This for me as someone who doesn't like big crowds is the only times where I feel a tiny bit unsafe in Paris, but I'd say that overall Paris is pretty safe. And obviously it's a big city, obviously there's different dangers to living in a big city, but I don't think you should worry too much. You should know that violent crime is pretty rare and just apply basic safety rules to not get your phone stolen, which can happen. You know, these are the basic rules that I've been taught growing up. So don't look rich, so don't flaunt anything that seems expensive in a public space. Don't look clueless, just walk like you know where you're going. Always be polite and never confrontational, so if you start arguing with people, you know, you'll get into a fight and we don't want that. And, you know, of course, keep your newest iPhone in a zip pocket or close by. You know, that's the rules I personally follow, and I've only gotten my phone stolen once in all my life, and it was during a protest. So just bad luck for me. Another question I get all the time is what to wear in Paris. You know, this is a real city people live in. It's not a fashion show. Don't expect anything fancy like Emily in Paris. People just dress normally in France. So anything you wear in your country, you can wear it in France as well. I feel also French people tend to be pretty low-key when going out compared to big cities like New York or other places in the US. To go out to a nice restaurant, for example, wear the same thing I've been wearing all day and just maybe like freshen up a little bit. The only thing I feel is a bit different compared to, let's say, New York is in Paris, I don't feel comfortable going out in tiny shorts and a sports bra because people tend to stare a bit more. Whereas in New York, people really don't care about you. And I also don't go out wearing my PJs. These are the only two personal rules I have for being dressed properly in France. Obviously, as I keep saying, Paris is a big city. There's people from all over the world here. It's very multicultural, so just wear whatever you want. And one thing I recommend if you come to Paris is that you should abandon this stereotypical idea of what a Parisian should look like. Since, you know, a lot of us come from a mix of cultures, and just to give you an idea, I'm half French, but my dad is from Spain. And among my friends, a lot of people have a parents that's not French and literally coming from every continent. And if you want to know about things you shouldn't do in Paris, you should watch this video next, and I'll see you there.